Hey guys, it's Elizabeth with Willow Root Tarot, and today I'd like to talk a little about what I mean when I say card-based mediumship, because this is going to be the foundation for the practice circle that I am starting in June. This approach explores mediumship through symbolism, atmosphere, cards, observation, intuition, and interpretation. And it's not really about memorizing meanings so much as learning how symbolism begins interacting with emotion, memory, atmosphere, and awareness. And for me personally, cards create structure. They give the mind and intuition something to respond to. They create a relationship between imagery, emotion, memory, atmosphere, and interpretation. They also slow things down, which I think is really important. They create visual anchors. They give the mind somewhere to rest while intuition, symbolic association, emotional response, and observation begin unfolding around the imagery itself. One of the reasons I enjoy card-based mediumship is because different readers perceive information differently, even when looking at the exact same image. One person may emotionally respond to color. Another may focus on posture. Another may suddenly remember a person, place, or emotional experience while looking at the card. And another may lock onto a single object in the background and not fully understand why until much later in the reading. And that variation matters. The goal is not necessarily finding one fixed meaning for every card or every symbol. The goal is learning how symbolic communication moves through your own perception, awareness, memory, emotion, and interpretation. Something I've noticed over time is that symbolic communication often starts much softer than people expect it to. Sometimes people imagine mediumship as instantly receiving names, dates, relationships, or direct statements. And sometimes communication can absolutely feel immediate and recognizable. But very often, it begins through atmosphere, symbolism, emotional texture, visual emphasis, memory overlap, and intuitive association. Sometimes the first thing that arrives is emotional atmosphere. A card may suddenly feel peaceful, grieving, protective, distant, nervous, intimate, celebratory, heavy, or emotionally quiet before any clear interpretation forms around it. You may not even know who or what the feeling belongs to yet. You're simply noticing the emotional weather surrounding the symbolism. Sometimes communication arrives through symbolic impressions instead of direct information. You may repeatedly notice birds, windows, water, pathways, candles, trains, keys, gardens, or bridges. And the symbol itself may matter less than what it emotionally evokes. A bridge may represent transition, reconnection, distance, healing, or movement between states depending on the emotional atmosphere surrounding it. A lantern may feel like searching. Water may feel ancestral, emotional, reflective, unresolved, or cleansing. And sometimes only part of the card feels activated. Your attention may keep returning to a background figure, a hand position, smoke, shadows, a doorway, a specific color, or a light source. Instead of immediately trying to explain it, part of the practice becomes staying curious about why that detail feels emotionally charged or visually alive. Sometimes interpretation begins physically. You may notice warmth in the hands, pressure behind the eyes, heaviness in the chest, emotional release, tingling, calmness, or restlessness. The body participates in interpretation too. Sometimes thoughts appear unexpectedly and feel emotionally distinct from your normal mental flow. A card showing rain may suddenly make you think, he waited. Not because the card literally says that, but because the symbolism, atmosphere, and emotional tone created that association. Memory also becomes part of symbolic interpretation because human beings naturally process meaning through association. A card may suddenly remind you of sitting in someone's kitchen, hearing a specific phrase, smelling a perfume, remembering a room, or emotionally reconnecting to a specific moment in your life. And all of that becomes part of the symbolic conversation. Another thing I'll probably talk quite a bit about throughout this series is the idea of companion decks and mediumship decks. Some decks feel emotionally grounding, some feel softer, some feel louder symbolically, some feel emotionally safe, some feel clearer for spirit communication, some feel better for reflection and interpretation. I personally enjoy building intentional relationships with decks because relationship changes interpretation. Different decks create different emotional atmospheres and symbolic responses. So, the Meetup practice circle itself is going to function as a practice room, a place to observe, experiment, interpret, communicate, practice symbolic language, build confidence, and explore atmosphere and intuition together through cards. And for the first session, we're going to practice something called atmosphere before identity. And to give you an idea of what that will be and to let you practice on your own before we begin together, it's going to be where we're going to pull some cards, all of us, and focus first on emotional atmosphere, symbolic tone, energetic texture, visual emphasis, an intuitive response before trying to identify or define anything. Rather than immediately trying to prove communication or force interpretation, we're going to slow down and spend time with the emotional and symbolic environment surrounding the card itself. We'll explore questions like, what emotional tone does this card create? Does this feel quiet, protective, grieving, celebratory, warm, distant, restless, intimate, soft, sharp, ceremonial, playful, domestic, ancient, or unfamiliar? My dogs are joining in if you can hear them barking in the background. They're very excited about us playing together. And what part of the imagery creates that feeling? Which symbols immediately pull your attention? And does this card feel emotionally close or emotionally removed? The purpose of the exercise is to strengthen symbolic observation, emotional awareness, interpretive language, intuitive confidence, and relationship with imagery and atmosphere. It also helps people recognize that mediumship and symbolic interpretation often unfold gradually through observation, repetition, emotional texture, symbolism, memory, and association. Different people may experience the same card very differently, and that variation is important. One person may experience a card as comforting, while another experiences grief, distance, softness, nostalgia, tension, or emotional quietness. The goal is not sameness. The goal is learning how symbolic communication moves through your own perception and awareness. And the videos in this series are intentionally going to stay fairly short so people can revisit them easily. And the practice circle, the one on Meetup, that's where observation, repetition, experimentation, discussion, and symbolic communication begin developing through direct experience. I hope to see you at our Meetup group. You can find that at Willow Root Tarot on Meetup, and we're going to begin this series in June. See you soon, guys.